Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Collin Whitchurch, and I'm joined today by Jim Turvey from Roto Grinders for a very special Friday episode of Payoff Pitch. Of course, we're going to break down Friday's Major League Baseball slate, give you all the bets that we have on today's card. Then after that, we're going to dive into the futures. It's May 2nd right now. The first full month of the MLB season is out of the way. And so it's time to take stock in, what's changed. We've seen a month of these teams play. We've seen a month of these players play. The markets have moved. Awards, division futures, pennant, World Series, what have you. We're going to get into all of it. But first, we're going to dive into Friday's slate. As I mentioned, full 15-game slate here, all under the lights. So plenty of time, depending on what time you're listening to this episode, to lock in those bets. Jim, you're primarily a prop guy. I know, our regular listeners here are used to Sean Zerillo coming in here, giving out his 15 incredible bets on underdogs, on totals. Sean is off this week, as you know, prepping for the Kentucky Derby this weekend. Be sure to check that out, by the way. We've got some podcasts out there on the Action Network podcast feed on the Kentucky Derby this weekend. But with Sean off, we're here. I like betting walk props. I got some team-based stuff, but I'm going to jump to you first for best bets. Your best bet is, as expected, on a player prop today.
It is indeed. In fact, it's even more expected. We can kind of talk through process and all that later, but my best bet is Sonny Gray under 5.5 strikeouts. You can get that minus 105 at DraftKings.
All right, and my best bet today is going to be on the Brewers. First 5 money line. They are playing the Cubs. I'll jump into my analysis here a little bit to lead us off. I am a Quinn Priester truther. I think Quinn Priester is underrated. I think he's a decent starting pitcher. Obviously, you look at his surface number stats. No, he's not a great starting pitcher. He still struggles with walks. But I've been on Priester in a couple starts. Now he's come through in an underdog spot. If he can avoid the walks, he had a significant pitch mix last year in Boston. It's carried over to Milwaukee. If there's one staff I trust to work with a mix like Priester's, who's a former first-round pick, former top 100 prospect, it's the Brewers. The Brewers are good with pitchers like this. They've been good with him this year. His pitch mix has been really helpful with his ability to induce weak contact. Obviously, if he allows few too many base runners via the free pass against this Cubs offense, it could get ugly. But Ben Brown on the other side has walk issues of his own. Ben Brown obviously has very good strikeout stuff, way better than Priester's, but his walk issues are just as prevalent, if not more so. The Brewers are an extremely patient team as well. I'll get into my walk props a little later, but I strongly considered adding Brown to my walk props today. But I like Priester here in a slight underdog spot against the Cubs, specifically the first 5. I'm going to take the bullpens out of the equation today. Take Brewers first 5 money line plus 100 or better there. Jim, tell me why you like Sonny Gray's strikeouts under today.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so used to buckets where I just say the bet and then it circles back. I'm rusty with my payoff pitch where I give the whole analysis. Right. Real quick before I go into that, I will say that I'm intrigued by this Brewers bet as well. I did do mostly player prop stuff today, but I was looking for a team angle out there, and I was actually, it's funny, I was eyeing the Cubs. I was like, we'll talk about the Cubs later. I'm really high on the Cubs, and I looked at Priester's pitch mix, and I went to that Savant search where you can kind of look at handedness and pitch mix. The Cubs actually weren't as good against right-handed fastballs, which is, Quinn Priester is right-handed fastballs embodied. They weren't as good there as I was hoping. So I laid off it. And then it's funny to hear you come on and be on the Milwaukee side. And I was like, that I couldn't get myself to a Cubs angle. So I don't mind being on the Milwaukee side of things. But for my best bet, I've got Sonny Gray under 5.5 strikeouts. This is one where, these early season strikeout rates, they're a little noisy at times. You'll see a pitcher whose strikeout rate is dropped. And, it's a 6-game sample. We're a month into the season. It seems like, there should be a decent sample there. Strikeout rate isn't going to have stabilized now there. But sometimes on the flip side, there is the stuff under the hood that's telling you, there is a little bit of something here going on. Now, this Sonny Gray's strikeout rate this season is right around his career strikeout rate, but it's a notable drop from last season. And, if we use like Bayesian, which the books are going to be doing, they're going to weigh last season more than the previous seasons where he was lower. So to me, this is a return to form for him more than last season is now kind of looking a little bit more like an outlier rate. His swinging strike rate is down 13.4% last year, 12.1 this year. The O swing rate is down 3% as well. The stuff plus is down for a career of 100 to 96 this season. The location plus down from 99 to 96. Add it all together, and that, yeah, like I said, that the strikeout rate was a little bit over 30 last season, which really popped for Gray. It kind of now is like maybe clearly kind of a little bit of an outlier. He's down around that 24%, which is right around his career norms. And the Mets strike out at a bottom 10 rate. So they did get to see, and here's the other thing, they got to see Sonny Gray a couple of weeks ago. Now, admittedly, they struck out 6 times in that game. That was a 6 strikeout game for Gray. However, he got to a season high pitch count in that game. He got 102 pitches, which is about 10 pitches more than he got in any other game. Now, the counter to that would be he got his 6 strikeouts before he cleared a big pitch count. But getting to see the pitcher again, plus I think with a little bit of regression to the mean on some of the numbers here that were deflated a little bit from last season, and getting almost even money, I'm going to take that under 5.5 on Sonny Gray's strikeouts today.
Love that, especially like you mentioned, seeing a pitcher twice in a short period of time. Always need to factor that in, and it's always a positive from just from a price perspective when that pitcher went over the last time, because you get a little bit of a discount there. Let's jump into underdogs for this slate. I have a couple of underdogs that I'm going to list here. They're really, really ugly underdogs. We've hit a couple of ugly bets lately. I've been on the Rockies the last 2 nights. They won 2 straight games. Jim, did you realize that both the White Sox and Rockies won yesterday? They have 14 combined wins. Do you want to know how many times this year in 5 or 6 weeks that they've both won on the same day?
I was wondering if it was somehow going to be the first. I'll say that it's the second time. I'll say they got done one other time.
You're right, but the other time there is a caveat. So they both won yesterday on May 1st. They also both won on April 20th. However, the Rockies won game 2 of a doubleheader, so they also lost that day. So yesterday the White Sox beat the Brewers, the Rockies beat the Giants, and then on April 20th the White Sox beat the Red Sox, and the Rockies won game 2 of a doubleheader with the Nationals. They have 14 combined wins. They both won yesterday. The Rockies have won 2 straight, believe it or not. And I'm on them again tonight against the Giants and Robbie Ray. These are pure number plays for me. Zarilla talks about this all the time. When the numbers are backing a heavy underdog, you make the bet because the price is there. You kind of go into it expecting to lose the money, but again, you're getting that value. And if you win, all the better. Again, last night, I bet the Rockies money line against the Giants at plus 210. I believe it closed around plus 225 or so. So didn't get the CLV there. So, depending on when you're listening to this episode, I actually haven't logged this bet in the Action app yet. I haven't placed it yet because the Rockies are sitting at plus 230 right now. And given the way the public is treating the Rockies, I'm going to wait, see if a better number gets out there. Robbie Ray, obviously a highly volatile pitcher. I'll talk about him a little bit more in my walks props section. But again, the Rockies sitting here at plus 230. We'll see where that number gets, but I like it at plus 224 or better, to be fair. And Jim, you have some thoughts on the Rockies as well.
Yeah, this was it. Like you said, I'm doing more, and maybe this is a good time to talk through. If people are following me in the app, if they've been following in years before, I have been doing more team stuff in the past, but this year, because of my position as, I'm doing the projections over at Roto Grinders, and it's really pitching focused. And it's really, that is pretty much the strings that I'm pulling are all pretty much looking at pitchers. The model itself is doing a lot of the team-based stuff and a lot of the hitting stuff. So I'm really finding myself in the weeds with a lot of pitcher props. So if anyone out there, followed SBK out there for a while, Keach, love him. He was doing a lot of stuff, same stuff, and you would see he would always be posting pitcher props. So I'm doing a lot of that this year. So I'm not as in the weeds on the team level stuff, but I will say, and maybe we can use this to transition over to a few other bets that we have as well. Of Rocky has caught my eye. It's Antonio Senzatella, which is, you said the Rockies money line is ugly. Here's an even uglier bet, potentially. Senzatella over 2.5 strikeouts, minus 132. God. We are really in the grodiest level of bets here. But listen, a win's a win, right? And so here's one. With Sonny Gray, we talked about how the strikeout rate has dropped, and there seems to be actually something under the hood suggesting that is a legitimate drop. With Senzatella, he didn't have a great strikeout rate to drop anyways, but I think this is a little bit of a fake drop. For his career, he's around 13%. It's dropped into single digits this year, which is like, borderline like comical. Like almost no one in the league has a single digit strikeout rate in this era. And I think that this is a matter of small sample size here. The swinging strikeout rate matches his career. It's actually up from last season when he had about 13% strikeout rate. Same with the called strike rate, same with O swing, some of the same stuff I talked about, with Sonny Gray being signs of not great. Here is like, oh, this is just kind of fluky. The stuff plus is a little bit lower, which is probably more impactful for strikeouts, but the location plus is actually notably up so that the pitching plus overall is about the same. Velocity is about the same. And here's the thing that I think helps with this money line as well, that you're on. The Giants are kind of sneaky bad against righties. They strike out at a top 10 rate, and they have a bottom 10 weighted runs created plus against righties. I was a little bit surprised by that because this Giants team obviously has been out to a great start this season. They were one of my favorite teams to start the season, and so far I've really, really loved what I've seen from them. But I don't mind being on the Rocky side of it here, and I certainly don't mind being on this Senzatella prop. It's about minus 150 elsewhere. That would be right around. I had it originally. I was like, man, I think I'll make this more of a lean. But then FanDuel posted a number that moved it right into the range where I was comfortable having it as a bet here. So played right around that 150. I would still do a sprinkle on it around that number.
Yeah, Senzatella is kind of a hilarious pitcher, like you mentioned, his strikeout numbers. And you look at just like, I'm always looking at these guys' walk numbers because I'm digging deep into the walk props each day. He's enters the day with 5 walks and 13 strikeouts on the season. You're like, okay, he's made 2 or 3 starts. No, he's made 6 starts. 5 walks. So he doesn't walk anyone. He doesn't strike anyone out. He's the epitome of a pitch to contact pitcher. Yep. It's like I don't know if you remember Carlos Silva back in the day.
Oh,
the Twins and the Mariners. He's like a modern day Carlos Silva, but actually that's probably pretty disrespectful to Carlos Silva.
Yeah, Carlos Silva, I think, had made a couple All-Star games. Maybe.
Yeah, he was pretty good there for a little while. The one thing I'll say, I like this bet, and I like obviously the Rockies today, is that you mentioned the Rockies' success or lack thereof against right-handed pitching. So much of the Giants' offensive success this year has been reliant on the walks. You said they strike out a lot. They also walk a lot. They walk a lot against right-handed pitching. Senzatella's not going to give them free passes, so they're going to need to make hard contact against him to win today. Maybe we get lucky with a Rockies win. Maybe Senzatella strikes out a couple guys. He did strike out 4 in his last start against the Reds. That was his season high, not surprisingly. I've got one more team bet. And then we'll get into a couple more props. And it's another gross one. I'm on the Angels tonight against the Tigers. And Tarik Skubal, not excited to bet against Skubal. I've bet against him a couple times this year. Best pitcher in the American League. Maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball. But guess what? The Tigers are only 3-3 in Skubal starts this year. So as good as he's been, it's not like betting against the Tigers in Skubal starts is throwing away money. The Angels are in a rough spot right now. This is pretty much the low spot in their market right now. Trout got placed on the injured list late last night after leaving game with injury a couple days ago. They're hoping it's not serious, but obviously without him for the foreseeable future, as they have been most years recently. Unfortunately, they've lost 6 straight. They got swept by the Twins last week, and the Twins were off to just about the worst start in their franchise history before they ran into LA. So I'm buying on the Angels right now at the bottom of their market. I'm also betting against Jose Soriano in the walks market later, but I'm betting on him here. I think he's slightly underrated pitcher overall. I bet on the Angels last night. Split bets on the first 5 and the full game. They cashed the first 5, had an absolute bullpen meltdown late with Reed Detmers allowing a 3-run bomb to Dylan Dingler. Spencer Torkelson went deep late. But I'm doing the same thing again tonight, splitting a half unit each on the Angels' first 5 and the Angels' full game against Skubal. Again, just think we're getting a decent number here. I've got the Angels' first 5 at plus 145, full game at plus 150. So again, you cash one of those bets, you're making out good. If we cash them both, we're feeling great. Never feel great about betting against Skubal, but think there's value on it tonight. Jim, you have, I think, one more player prop you want to get to before we dive into futures.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to do, I love a long shot, so I wanted to find one long shot. And this number is a little bit higher because he is going against the lefty, but I'm going to give out Corbin Carroll to triple at plus 2,800 at DraftKings. This is only plus 700 at FanDuel. So I think this is one of those where it's a long shot market. We talked a lot about how, once you're in the long shots, like 1 or 2% can change a payout by 4 or 5x. This seems to be one of those cases. The Phillies are a top 8 park for lefty triples. Now we're really getting in the weeds when we're referencing, top 8 for lefty triples.
Love this.
But this is a guy who has 4 triples on the season already. One of the fastest players in baseball, one of the best players in baseball, making a pretty early decent case for an MVP, which, we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. And so I think we're getting that, Jesus Luzardo is on the mound for the Phillies, getting a lefty versus lefty to start. But starting pitchers say you're going to get a couple of shots against that bullpen as well. They do have Strom in there who is rested today, but they've got a plethora of righties as well that he should get a shot against. So I think this is a fun little sprinkled long shot. It's not, don't go putting the mortgage on this, but plus 2,800 DraftKings compared to plus 700 at FanDuel for a player that I love to bet. The ceiling on Corbin Carroll is one of those players that, just kind of does the amazing often. So I'd love to put a plus 2,800 on him to get a triple today at DraftKings.
4 triples this year for Carroll, leads the league. 14 last year, also led the league. So yeah, why not? Love it. I've got 4 walk props I'm going to give out here. As I've mentioned a couple times I've been on this show, been really high on the walk props this year. Had a really solid success rate so far this season, although I am on quite a cold spell. If you listen to Tuesday's episode, I gave out 6. I believe I went 0-6. So we're bouncing around a little bit, but I've got 4 tonight, including Jesus Luzardo, who you just mentioned. I am on his over 1.5 walks. Also, Logan Allen of the Guardians over 2.5 walks. Grant Holmes of the Braves over 2.5, and the aforementioned Jose Soriano over 2.5. These are all highly volatile arms going against patient lineups. The market is actually starting to sharpen up on walk props. If you're not getting 2.5 on some of the more wild guys, they're offering the over 1.5 even more juiced than ever. There were a lot of guys I liked today who were in the over 1.5 at minus 210, minus 230 range. I just couldn't get there on them. But I like these guys. Again, Luzardo against the Diamondbacks, Logan Allen, Grant Holmes against the Dodgers, and Soriano against the Tigers. These are all patient lineups that these guys are facing, and 3 of them are plus money. The 2.5s are all plus money, so I like getting a little bit of extra value there. So I'm on those 4 tonight. I will say, if you're looking for a fun sweat tonight, and again, if you're struggling to find some better walk props, they're starting to offer some over-under half a walk on a couple of the more elite pitchers. Skubal, we just talked about, is going against the Angels. The Angels don't walk at all, especially with Trout. Under half a walk for Skubal tonight is sitting at about plus 140. Ooh. Also, Joe Ryan tonight, another very control-heavy guy, under half a walk against the Red Sox tonight is plus 170. So those are more leans for me. Kind of fun if you're watching those games and every single at bat, you're just, please don't walk this guy. Every single 3-2 count is just going to be the ultimate sweat. But at plus money, those are a little fun. And the one other guy that I considered, so I'll mention him even if it's not an official play, is Robbie Ray. I've bet on Robbie Ray a ton this year. He's been so erratic, bet on the overs. It's been a lot of fun. I was actually looking to go in the opposite direction, again, against the Rockies, who I'm betting tonight. The Rockies don't walk at all. So I was looking at hoping to get a 2.5, bet an under on Robbie Ray, kind of pivot a little bit, zag when everyone else is zigging. But the books were too smart. They listed him at 1.5 walks. The under's plus 145, so it's a little bit intriguing. He did only walk 1 in his last start, but I just couldn't quite get there on Ray, despite him being someone that I've loved to bet against so much this year. As I mentioned, we're going to get into the futures, but before that, let's toss it over to Action Network predictive analyst Billy Ward to talk some YRFIs Nerfies for the Friday slate.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with my YRFI Nerfy picks for the day. The first one, we are going back to the well with the Yankees team-specific first run line. It's plus 185 at DraftKings. I've hit this twice this week already, and the top of the Yankees lineup is just so ridiculous right now that it's projecting extremely well. Aaron Judge has a 262 WRC+, by far the best in the league. And we can't even pitch around him right now because Ben Rice comes right after him, and he's like a top 10 hitter based on his stats right now. Ryan Pepiot, the Rays starter, not bad, but not someone I'm especially going out of my way to avoid. And then we also have pretty solid hitting weather in New York tonight, which is always a bonus. The game YRFI is also projecting okay, but I'd rather take the half-unit shot on the bigger payout since most of that value is coming from the Yankees. Moving on to our next YRFI of the day, that is Royals-Orioles. This is another one where we're seeing more of the value on one side. That's because Dean Kremer has been so bad this year. He's allowed YRFIs in 4 of the 6 games he's started in. He has a 7.50 first time through the order ERA. And the Royals lineup, while not great, is getting better. They're starting to turn it around a little bit. They've got some guys at the top of the lineup. With that said, I prefer the game YRFI at minus 125 at ESPN Bet, just because we're seeing a little bit of value on the Orioles. They've got some big bats at the top of the lineup. It is not all as one-sided as it is in the Yankees game. But if you wanted to take the bigger shot, just trying to fade Dean Kremer also makes a lot of sense. And then our last one, our only NRFI of the day, I'm going the NRFI and Tigers-Angels. The short version is Tariq Skubal is probably the best pitcher in baseball. His stats have gotten even better than his Cy Young winning campaign last year. And he's taken on the Angels, who ranked 29th against lefties this season. There's almost no risk on the Angels side. I say almost because we still have to deal with Mike Trout, but not something we're super worried about. The Tigers are facing Jose Soriano. Little bit more risk there, but given what the line is, it's minus 145 at DraftKings or minus 135 at ESPN. We would not take the opposite of that, plus 135 or plus 145 on the Tigers' yes runs. So since most of the risk is coming from that side, their lineups are a little bit tricky because A.J. Hinch moves hitters around so much. But I'm projecting, even with their best hitters at the top of the lineup, a pretty solid edge here. I'd play that one to about minus 150, depending on what version of the lineup the Tigers roll out. That's all for me for the YRFI NRFIs today. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Billy. All right, Jim, let's get to what we're here to talk about. Some futures. As I mentioned, we have entered the second full month of the season. You and I talk futures quite a bit. There's no one better at this company, I would argue, to have on a futures-oriented episode than Jim Turvey of Roto Grinders. And it's impressive. I know we're right in the heart of the NBA playoffs. You're a big NBA guy. The W's right around the corner. Big W guy, very excited for this season. But basically what we're going to do here, we're going to jump around to a couple of the award categories here, mention the favorites, talk about some bets we have, and then toward the end, we'll look at some of these team-based futures, the win totals, World Series pennant, division, etc. And let's start right up at the top. This is probably the least interesting discussion, so let's get it out of the way first. Least interesting to me, at least. AL MVP. Aaron Judge has lapped the field at this point. I don't know if you saw, actually, there are markets out there on if Judge will hit 400 at the All-Star break and if Judge will be hitting 400 for the whole season. A little ridiculous. I think it was like plus 1,000 for him to be hitting 400 by the All-Star break and like plus 6,500 for him to hit 400 for the whole season, for him to, he passed Roger Maris a few years ago. Now this year he's challenging Ted Williams. Totally normal. Just the best hitter since Barry Bonds. Anyway, he's at about minus 700 to win AL MVP, which makes this a award that is not super interesting to bet. But you do have someone you like. If we're getting into anyone in AL MVP, it's going to be a long shot, and you have a long shot you like.
No, you're 100% right. Because with an award like this, the stuff Judge is doing is just insane. He's basically putting up a tenth of a WAR per game, which basically puts on pace for a 16 WAR season. He's at 3.2 WAR in 31 games. It's like genuinely comical stuff. His 262 weighted runs created plus would be the best of all time. He's basically done it for like an entire hidden 162 game season because he started really slow last year and then went absolutely bananas after the first month. So, I mean, it's really insane. I would say the counter, if you want to make one, is this, that he has a little bit of a history of health and was supposed to have this foot issue. I faded Judge in a few things before the season because there's all this talk about his foot. It doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all. And I will say this, the health stuff has started to look a little bit more and more fluky with time. He's played pretty consistently the last few seasons, so that's fading a little bit. But he has a BABIP literally over 500. His BABIP is 506 right now. Now, listen, when you're hitting like missiles at defenders, maybe you can get away with an inflated BABIP, but it's not going to stay here. On the flip side of that, the counter to the counter is there really isn't a great candidate in the weighting. The next 4 guys, if we look at Fangraphs WAR for the season, are all NL players. Bobby Witt is second in the AL right now, and he's second by projected WAR, but he's sniffed out. He was the second favorite to start the season. He's not even that long of a number right now. There's some other names like Next on the F4 list is like Cal Raleigh, who's vaguely intriguing, but I don't see Cal Raleigh winning an MVP. Cedric Mullins is not winning an MVP. That one, I promise you, won't happen. If you look at the rest of the season projections for WAR, it's, Julio Rodriguez and his really slow start. Maybe there's a little bit of, he breaks out. But again, he's a big name. His number isn't long enough. Yordan Alvarez has really struggled, and even under the hood, it doesn't look that great. Vladito, he's got the defensive WAR cap. Gunnar is sub 100 weighted runs created plus in a team in disarray. So I want one dart, and I want Wyatt Langford. He's missed a few games, but he's playing at about an eight WAR pace in the games that he has played, and that's without any batted ball luck. It's not like he's carrying a hefty BABIP. He's got 6 homers, 4 steals, really solid all-around player on a team that I think is pretty intriguing and could heat up as the summer goes along. Really talented young guy, probably not going to win MVP, but he's at plus 7,500 right now. I don't hate that as a dart, where if, say, Judge, this is basically a Judge injury dart, right? Say Judge gets injured, the market shifts all around. Langford has gotten hot in the meantime. This could be a really nice portfolio piece to let us buy in on, maybe Judge if the injury looks long-term, or another player who, maybe it is Julio Rodriguez, and it's kind of obvious in July that he's going to be in the mix. Then we can get a little sprinkle if the top 3 is going to be Langford, Rodriguez, and Judge, something like that. So this was just a number to me that stood out as a little bit long, but like you said, I mean, Judge, the stuff he's doing is absolutely insane right now. It's crazy to have a minus 700 MVP at the start of May. But it's even more insane that there's not like a ton of value on the rest of the board because of it. He's just been that good, and the rest of the league is a little bit shaken up right now. So that's the one play I have there for AL MVP.
Yeah, I like the kind of injury-based hedge. Being an NBA guy, it's almost like if you were betting into the Defensive Player of the Year voting in the NBA this year against Wembanyama, and that obviously would have worked out. Unfortunate injuries. We're never going to root for injuries, but Langford. It's funny you mentioned Langford and Julio Rodriguez in the same breath, because like a couple years ago, I feel like we talked about Julio Rodriguez as like a stealth MVP candidate, and it was like, if I could have bet on, like, let's say 3 years ago, it's like Julio Rodriguez is going to win an MVP in the next 5 years. Like, if that were a market, I would have bet on that. And I feel the same way about Langford now. It's like, he might not win it this year. He's probably not going to win it this year. But if there were a market, will Wyatt Langford win an MVP in the next 5 years? I would 100% bet into that market. The other, this is pretty much a pass category for me, to be fair. The only other guy I'll mention is kind of intriguing a little bit. You mentioned these kind of slow starts from big names. The one guy slow start from a big name whose number dropped a ton was Rafael Devers of the Red Sox, to the point where he's now 150 to 1 to win MVP. His weighted runs created plus is back up to 120. He got off to just about the worst start imaginable. I think he started the year, I actually know this because I have a lot of dynasty baseball stock in him. I think he started the year 0 for 18 with 15 strikeouts or something like that. At the moment, he actually leads the AL in both strikeouts and walks. The reason he's 150 to 1 is obviously the slow start, but also his WAR is going to be capped by the fact that he moved to DH full time. So he's really, really needs to mash. He's really, really been mashing over the last couple of weeks. Again, got hot to the point where 150 to 1 kind of made me go, a little bit. Again, just kind of an intriguing angle there, but not one I'm ultimately going to throw more than some couch change on. Langford, again, also a long shot, but someone who, if there's a Judge injury, that's someone that you want to kind of have in your portfolio of the other guys of the who's next. If not Judge, then who? Let's jump over to the NL MVP, where we have another strong favorite, but it's kind of a strong quartet of favorites a little bit. Shohei Ohtani's still the favorite. He was the favorite entering the season, plus 290. But we have Kyle Tucker right there. Again, I'm citing DraftKings odds here. We'll cite a couple different books here because odds vary, but just for the purpose of listing the favorites, Ohtani plus 290 at DraftKings, Kyle Tucker of the Cubs plus 350, Fernando Tatis Jr. of the Padres plus 450, Corbin Carroll, who we just talked about, plus 500, and then Pete Alonso at plus 700. Everyone else 1,600 or longer. And you actually like one of these guys at a different book, right, Jim?
I do indeed. So yeah, you talked about how these odds are clustered among kind of a big five. And that is the case at almost all of the books. But at Bet Rivers, Pete Alonso is still plus 1,300. So I think that just snagging a slightly off number is a great look here. Mets are off to a blistering start. They have been one of the best teams, probably the best team in baseball to start the season. And he has been absolutely mashing. Now, admittedly, it's been against a little bit of a soft schedule, but Judge is the only player with a better ex-WOBA than Alonso through Tuesday. Actually, I will say there's one other player under 100 plate appearances. Can you guess the other guy who is squeezed between Aaron Judge and Pete Alonso for the best ex-WOBA to start the season? He just doesn't have enough plate appearances.
Is it Jorge Polanco?
You are good, Collin. Well done. That is exactly who it is.
There was a graphic I shared on social media the other day. It cracked me up. I was watching the Mariners game, and they had a big graphic up. It was like hot starts to 2025, and it was comparing Jorge Polanco's stats to Aaron Judge's stats. That's the only reason I came up with it. But yeah, that's hilarious.
Very well done. Actually, I have another quiz. While I'm quizzing you, this is a much easier quiz. Can you name the last time a player three-peated the MVP?
Three-peated the MVP. AL, or either?
Either.
Well, is it Bonds?
It is indeed. So two for two, Collin. Well done. He actually four-peated. He went 2001 all the way through 2004.
That sounds about right.
Voter fatigue, I don't think is as much of a thing in baseball as it is in basketball for sure. But I do think it's like a 5% thing. And I do, Ohtani's looking to three-peat this year. I think Alonso makes a very natural pivot point. The Mets being, a potential story of the season. His X slug is higher than his actual slug this season. So these numbers are very, very real. New York's just the type of city that's only going to heat up as the summer goes along, whereas someone like Ohtani in LA, they're starting in a warm environment. They're staying in a warm environment the whole time. So I think, this number is just almost twice as long at Rivers as you can find anywhere else. So I really like this plus 1,300. It's a really fun race though. Like I already talked about how much I love Corbin Carroll. He was one before the season. I was also on Ketel Marte before the season. Unfortunately, he's been hurt. And probably isn't going to be able to be in the mix because there's so much depth of talent in this NL MVP race. But to me, the Alonso at plus 1,300 is the only one I want at this second.
Is there any concern for you? I'm just curious if you factor this into. I know you've dug deep into like awards trends in the past. There are 3 Mets that are in the top 8 in NL MVP odds. Alonso, right behind Alonso, are Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. Is there any, do you factor that in at all? Is there any concern I like Alonso, but if the Mets are in it, if the Mets, are good all year and they've got all these MVP candidates, maybe these, Mets voters kind of split up between who's the most valuable, Alonso is the question then doesn't become, is Alonso the most valuable player in the National League? Is he the most valuable player on the Mets?
It's funny. I think, I said the three-peat isn't, or going for a three-peat and voter fatigue isn't a huge thing, but maybe 5%. I would say it's probably about 5%. I haven't done a very good deep dive into that specific factor, to be honest. The thing I know with MVP is you really want WAR. MVP has become the WAR leaderboard. Cy Young has become the ERA crown. And it is tough for Alonso as, a position that is not going to be collecting much more compared to like a Corbin Carroll who has the outfield and the speed and all that. But I don't think it's a huge factor. I think it's probably a non-zero factor. And we saw Juan Soto really start to heat up, just the last couple of days. I think he has hit his first 2 homers at Citi Field as a Met. So I think it's not a non-zero factor, but the amount that Alonso is off at Rivers compared to the rest of the market is enough for me to have that as my favorite bet still. But definitely something worth thinking about, especially if Soto really starts heating up and becomes the conversation point instead of Alonso in his fast start.
Yeah, and you look at narratives, both Soto and Alonso have the narrative on their side. Soto obviously signing the monster deal, coming over to Queens, and if he blows up, people will be all over that. But then also Alonso, people thought that he was done as a Met after last year. I remember seeing highlights of when he hit that that homer. People are saying, is this Alonso's last at bat as a Met? Et cetera, et cetera. So there are narratives there on both angles. Talking about the teammate splitting vote is interesting because my one long shot I'm taking here in the NL MVP market is on Mookie Betts. And again, this is kind of an outlier number, like you mentioned with Alonso. You're seeing Betts in the 30 to 40 to 1 range at most books. He's sitting at 55 to 1 right now at Caesars. Obviously, he has the 3rd best odds on the Dodgers right now, behind Ohtani, behind Freddie Freeman. And I just think, Freddie Freeman, I guess it depends on your book. Betts is second, I guess, at most books. But he's just someone who's always going to be in the mix. And you mentioned the WAR leaderboard. Last year was a little bit of a down year for him, and he's gotten off to a slow start this year, which is why he's down at 55-1. But Betts is historically someone who heats up as the summer goes along. If he stays healthy, he's going to be in the mix. The one issue with him climbing up the WAR leaderboard is that he's playing shortstop now. Not as good defensively at shortstop as he was when he was in right field or moving around the outfield every day. But again, this is just kind of a numbers play here where Betts at 55-1. If the Dodgers do what the Dodgers do, if Ohtani gets dinged up or doesn't live up to those lofty Ohtani specific expectations, Betts is going to be right there. You don't have to worry about the team success with him because the team success is going to be there. And yeah, just looking for like in the AL MVP, looking for those stars who got off to a slow start. Their odds dropped a little bit, and Betts is right there at 55-1 for me.
It's so funny how it's so hard to realize how little we will weigh this first month by the end of the season. It really becomes a forgotten thing of the past. And it's if you are in these markets and looking at them, on a weekly or even monthly basis, you'll really see these kind of crazy variations. They're like, man, Betts slipped to 55-1 in the start of May. So it really is great. It seems like a very simple thing to just say star who started slow. But the nature of the way people think and the way people bet in the markets, it's very hard to avoid that. So it's a great look. I like it.
Yeah, and I mean we're at the point in the season still where we're a month in, but like one hot week can raise a guy's batting average like 50 points.
One bad start. There was a name I had on. We'll get to say Cy Young. There was a name I had circled for Cy Young. Then he had like not even that bad of a start, and suddenly I was like, oh. Like these numbers don't look good anymore. I think I'm out. It is amazing how quickly it can change this early in the season.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's move into Cy Young then. American League Cy Young odds. At present, we are seeing the reigning AL Cy Young winner, Tarek Skubal, as the favorite at DraftKings at plus 230. Just a slight favorite over Garrett Crochet at plus 250. Two other guys lower than 10-1. We have Hunter Brown of the Astros at plus 550, and then Max Fried of the Yankees at plus 850. Jim, you and I actually align on a bet in the AL Cy Young market. I'll let you go first.
Love it. Yeah, talked about this just briefly, but this has basically just become an ERA crown. So of the last 14 years, all of them have been in the top 2 in the ERA in their league, and 10 of those 14 have been the qualified ERA leader. So really, you're looking for ERA here. And if we'd come on a week ago, I would come on here promoting Logan Gilbert till I died. And then the elbow boogeyman came to get him. But his numbers were absolutely incredible. And when he comes back, if he's able to come back really quick, you really can win this award with about 160 innings pitched these days. So if you have a brief IL stint, that doesn't entirely rule you out. So I'll be looking to see how that news goes for Logan Gilbert, because he has been arguably the best pitcher in the American League this season in a ballpark that is so nice to pitch in. So that's a guy I want to keep an eye on. But the actual bet I want to go with today is Cole Reagans. He's got an inflated early season ERA. It's over 4, but his FIP, XFIP, xERA, all of that looks elite. It's all under 3, and because of that, you can kind of buy the dip. Just like we were saying for MVP, he's at 20-1 plus 2,000 at Caesars. Now, there is a little bit of danger to buying the dip on the Cy Young, because we just said this is basically an ERA crown, and if you have those runs, they aren't going anywhere. But you can work them out throughout the course of a season. His strikeout rate is up. His walk rate is down. He's even become even more elite at inducing poor contact. You put all that together, and a pitcher who was excellent last season and had his breakout, is a well-known guy, is pitching in that big open stadium where if you have a good defensive outfield behind you, you can really kind of get away with a couple of mistakes. I really like Cole Reagans overall here. I think the number is a little bit long. In a market where Skubal has been great. Skubal, if you go by Stuff Plus, he's even better this year. But pitchers, it's funny because the next pitcher I talk about on the NL side, I actually don't mind a shorter number. But pitchers in general, it's never going to hurt to take a long number, because there is just so much chaos, so much injury. It's unfortunate that it is how it is, but it is how it is right now, and you really have to kind of look for those long shots. So I think Reagans at plus 2,000 right now is a great buy low spot based on where he is to start the season, but all the numbers under the hood really loving what he's throwing.
Completely aligned with you on Reagans. He was the name that stuck out. It's funny you mentioned Gilbert. I do have a preseason ticket on Gilbert, so very much hoping that he comes back early enough that he stays in contention, because he would have been my favorite as well. When I look at Reagan's, what I look at, we so frequently cite, and awards voters also cite the Fangraphs pitching advanced stats, the FIPS and the xERAs, but I like to look over at Baseball Prospectus's version of that DRA. And that leaderboard right now, Cole Reagans has the lowest DRA in baseball among starting pitchers, 2.97. So it aligns. It's not often, actually, if we're being completely honest, that like FIP and DRA align on a pitcher, and they do on Reagan. So advanced stats across the board, love Reagan's. He also pitches in a ballpark that's good for pitchers. He also pitches in a division where he's going to face a lot of bad offenses very often. We'll see how many starts he gets against the White Sox this season. The Twins have been pretty abysmal this year. The Guardians do not have offense. And the Tigers, for as good as they've been, are, it's not like they're sitting there with a whole bunch of mashers throughout their lineup. So we could see that as well. There were jokes made at the end of last year of how much Tarek Skubal owes his Cy Young Award to the historically bad Chicago White Sox. Maybe that'll be the case with Reagan's as well. Let's move on to the NL Cy Young market. Keep things moving. The NL Cy Young market, we have our favorite. He remains the favorite from the preseason. It's Paul Skeens. At DraftKings right now, he's plus 190. Right behind him, Yamamoto of the Dodgers, plus 450. Hunter Green of the Reds, plus 500. Zach Wheeler of the Phillies at plus 900. A couple other guys in the lower double-digit range. Logan Webb, 12-1. Spencer Schwellenbach, personal favorite of mine, 13-1. We've been talking a lot of long shots here since we got to these awards. But, Jim, you are going with the favorite.
I am. This was the preseason bet. It was a short number then. It's still short, but I don't think it's short enough. So I'm going back in on Skeens at plus 210. This started the year as a will Paul Skeens stay healthy bet. It still is a will Paul Skeens stay healthy bet in my mind. He's actually done a great job kind of dialing things back just a touch. The velocity's down a tick, but from 99 to 98. This is not a velocity down worry injury. This seems to be a very purposeful decision by him to be able to get into games deeper. And here's the thing. What he's realized is that he has amazing swing and miss stuff. Maybe the best in baseball. He's also elite at limiting hard contact. Of the 33 best pitchers in baseball by xWOBA allowed, it's 32 relievers, and Paul Skeens right in the middle at the 14th lowest. That's insane. He really is in a class of his own at limiting hard contact. And then you add on top of that the fact that he's one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball. It's really unfair. He really is in a tier of his own. Yamamoto's been amazing, and I think he will continue to be amazing. I still think this is a Paul Skeens award to lose. He's going deeper into these games, like I said, because he's kind of dialing things back. He's letting more balls be in play. He's going for shorter play appearances. I think he could even get away with, one short little IL stint, get him to 160 innings, or like if the Pirates are fully out of it and they decide to shut him down at some point. I think there are a lot of routes to him winning. Getting at plus 210, it's really only because Yamamoto's out to an unreal start to the season. His numbers have been amazing, and the advanced numbers like it even more. So I think that this is a guy who is almost the Aaron Judge of pitching, but because he's had a little bit of bad luck in terms of runs allowed, and because Yamamoto is doing outstanding things instead of like in the AL where we said there's not as many contenders to judge, we're actually getting a pretty decent plus number on this. So I just said it's scary to bet on the favorite in pitching where there's a lot of injuries, and this is one of like the highest velocity guys who's going to be putting the most wear on his arms. But I think that don't overthink it here. This is the best pitcher in baseball at an implied 30% chance of winning the award. I think it's still a bet for me.
It's funny how much Skeens has evolved just since the time he was drafted. And like he evolved to the point where he became what he became in his rookie year. Like everyone obviously thought he was going to be really good when he was drafted. He was number one overall pick. He was great in college at LSU. But like he evolved his pitch mix the second he got drafted. And now this year, you mentioned him dialing it back a little bit very purposefully. He understands the grind of a 162 game season and what it takes to last that long. And that's, I think, rare, especially in this day and age, and especially with a young pitcher with elite stuff and who can touch 100 to just, rear back and let it fire every start in April would be so easy to do, but you can tell that he has longevity in his mind. You can tell that he's evolving, that he's a very smart and purposeful pitcher. And it's why I don't really, get too concerned when he has starts like he did the other day against the Cubs. Probably his worst start of the season, or maybe his second worst start of the season. And yeah, he's going to be able to ramp it up when he needs to. It would be great if that were in meaningful games late this fall. Unfortunately, it's not going to. That would be my one big concern there, is that the Pirates shut him down, limit his innings, keep him fresh for if they ever decide that they're going to try to win.
When they get a new owner in 2065.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I think the Pirates they're just going to let him go out there and do his thing. So I like that. I don't have any really strong bets on the favorite, so I am going to throw out one long shot, and this is another one where the odds at one book are a lot higher than they are everywhere else, and it's on another young flamethrower. I guess he's not really that young anymore. Max Meyer of the Miami Marlins.
Ooh, yeah.
100-1 at Bet Rivers right now. You see him at the 40 to 50-1 range at most sports books. The Marlins just churn out dudes like this, and it's crazy. I've talked about the Marlins quite a bit when I've been on this podcast, because they have not been nearly as bad as expected. I was on them in the worst record market before the season. Their roster is very strange, but they've been competent, and Max Meyer has been elite. I talked about the DRA leaderboard earlier. Cole Reagan's lowest in baseball among starting pitchers at 2.97. Max Meyer, 2.99. 0.02 behind him on that leaderboard. This guy misses bats at an elite level. He's striking out more than 12 per 9. He limits walks. He has always limited walks. The question was if he was going to up his game in the strikeout department. He has. You talk about ERA leaderboards. You talk about WAR leaderboards. Myers, if he's able to pitch a full season, he's going to be up there. The big question mark is if he's able to pitch a full season. He threw 57 innings in the majors last year. He missed all of 2023. He had Tommy John. He has dealt with arm issues in the past. He's 26 now, though. This isn't a young starting pitcher. Number 3 overall pick in the 2020 draft. And I think there's no reason why Miami won't just let him go and do his thing like the Pirates are doing with Skeens. Obviously doesn't have the upside of someone like Skeens. That's why he's 100-1 and not 2-1, But if some of these top guys falter, if we see some IL stints, like you say, it's kind of a war of attrition with pitching. If I'm betting on a war of attrition, Max Meyer's not my first horse that I'm going to back. But if he stays healthy, there's a pathway here. I love these Cy Young awards, and I love looking at these markets at this point in the season, because you find guys and you're like, you have no idea who's going to get hot over the course of 4 months. I like to look back at, the Jake Arrieta Cy Young season with the Cubs. You could even just go back to Blake Snell. He was 60-1 in June and won the Cy Young. So there are guys like this where you look at it now and you're like, there's no way that guy, Max Meyer, Cy Young winner, that's stupid. And 99% of the time you're going to be right, but you find these 1% outliers at long odds. You throw a couple darts and add to your portfolio, and maybe by August he's sitting at 8-1, and you're like, all right, and I've got a good ticket on my hand. Add to your portfolio with other guys.
There's some There's some really good newsletters out there that break down pitchers, like kind of like on a daily basis. And he has been lighting up these. Like, I feel like every day I've got a new Max Meyer article in my inbox about how the improvements that he has made. Talked to, when we were talking about Sonny Gray and those player props earlier, like kind of the changes that have been made during early season that are real and are not real. And with Max Meyer, it seems very, very real. So I'm going to add that to my list of stuff to bet when we get off of this call. So I like that a lot.
Let's move on to the Rookie of the Year. This is one where I don't know if you have a whole lot going on, Jim, which is fine. I'll throw out some guys, see if you have any thoughts. In the AL, I've got a couple of guys I'm eyeballing. Well, let me list the odds first. In the American League, we've essentially got co-favorites at this point. Jacob Wilson of the Athletics has been off to an absolutely insane start. The fact that someone on the Athletics is plus 125 to win AL Rookie of the Year shows how good he's been, because it's easy to ignore guys on the Athletics. He's essentially co-favorites with Christian Campbell of the Red Sox, who got off to an insane start. I think he's cooled down a little bit lately, but Wilson 125, Campbell plus 150. One of the preseason favorites, Jason Dominguez of the Yankees, is down at 900. Everyone else sitting at 13-1 or longer. It's a really interesting list of guys who have come up and struggled, come up and found a little bit of success. Guys who haven't come up at all yet, because, again, we're sitting here in early May. A guy could have not debuted yet and could still win this award. We saw Yordan Alvarez a couple years ago, obviously Skeens last year. So I've got 3 names here, various spots on the odds board that I'm keeping an eye on. The first is Cam Smith of the Astros. Obviously came over to Houston in the Kyle Tucker deal. Surprisingly made the Astros opening day roster. He's off to a little bit of a slow start. He's hitting 213, 306, 375, but he's turned it on lately. He got off to an absolutely terrible start, and he's gotten hotter. He's only 22. And he's the kind of player I expect to get better as the year goes on. The Astros are going to give him a long leash. They really like this kid. They are trying to win. He's their best option in the outfield right now. I have him at 30-1 at FanDuel are the best odds there. He was a lot lower entering the season. I feel like he was shorter than like 20-1. So obviously his slow start has helped him out. Another name lower on the odds board. These are all FanDuel numbers, actually. Their Rookie of the Year numbers have been off compared to a lot of the other books. Will Warren of the Yankees. This is just kind of like Yankees starting pitcher who survives a whole season. Like Luis Gil. I don't know how to say his name. The Rookie of the Year last year.
Maybe? Is it Gil?
Gil of the Yankees won it last year. I don't think he should have won AL Rookie of the Year last year, if we're being completely honest. But he was a Yankee starting pitcher who pitched a whole season, survived in the rotation, and was good. Will Warren has not been good this year, to be clear. But Will Warren, has some top 100 prospect upside. He's 26, so he's fully filled out. I think the Yankees are going to let him go as long as he's healthy. And he's 100-1, so I'm going to take a shot there. And the third guy I'm going to list is a bit of a homer angle because I've been following him more than most. It's Edgar Caro of the White Sox, catcher. Came up recently. He looks like the second coming of Tony Gwynn. I'm jesting here a little bit. He just is a contact machine. There's been a lot of talk about his lack of power, but he's hitting line drives. He's spraying line drives to all fields. He does not strike out at all. And if he starts lofting the ball and putting some power in the ball, that'll help a lot. And as a catcher, he gets kind of a positional advantage. Now, his catching defense is a question mark. He's a hit-first prospect big time. But we're looking at a guy who could easily be hitting north of 300 in close to a full season worth of playing time by the end of the year, splitting time between catcher and DH. That's someone voters are going to recognize 100%. The WAR will hurt a little bit if his defense isn't up to snuff. But at 120-1 at FanDuel, for a guy who's going to play every day for a really bad team, absolutely worth a stab there. Jim, do you have any thoughts on the Rookie of the Year race?
It's funny. Rookie of the Year is one that I find like it can be incredibly valuable, but it also takes a lot of time. I am able to do NBA playoffs and prep for WNBA and still be able to do some MLB futures. Rookie, you really got to be, got to know minor leagues. You got to be like thinking big picture about what teams might be promoting and demoting. And it is a incredibly valuable mark, I think, but it is a really tough one. So I didn't have any specifically. I'll say I'm very surprised to hear that there are 2 favorites at plus 125 and then all these really long numbers a month into the season, with how often rookies who get off to a hot start or off to a slow start. That tells me that there is value in this. So I'm definitely going to be joining you on the guys you sent out. Is the National League the same where there's as many guys outside of a top 2 consensus this early in the season, or does it look a little different over there?
Well, there's a top 3 consensus in the National League, and it's not quite the plus 100s range.
Yeah.
But, we entered the season with Roki Sasaki as a strong favorite. Anytime there's a player who comes over who isn't really a rookie, he's been a professional baseball player for a while, he's still up there. But the favorite's actually Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens' former teammate at LSU, plus 240 for the Nationals. Sasaki's plus 320. And then the big mover, who Sean Zerillo gave out as a long shot before the season, Agustin Ramirez, catcher for the Marlins, is at plus 330. And then we got a guy at 10-1 who has not debuted yet, Bubba Chandler of the Pirates. And after him, after that top four at 10-1, you go all the way to 25-1 before you find anyone. So Cruz, Sasaki, Ramirez, and then Chandler. I love Ramirez. If you didn't buy into him now, or if you didn't buy into him, was that
pretty late to the party now?
Yeah, if you didn't buy into him before now, you're pretty late to the party. He's been insane with his offense for the Marlins. He's hitting 290, 333, 710 for the Marlins right now. Granted, it's 33 plate appearances. He's only played a little more than a week's worth of game. He's also atrocious defensively behind the plate. Like this guy is who is the Yankees catcher who
not
got
Sanchez.
Straight. Yes, yeah, Gary. Like we're talking like early career, like Gary Sanchez, like just that level of butchering. Like I was watching his first or second start in the Marlins broadcast. He's just like dropping balls. He's allowing pass balls that he has no business behind the plate. They're going to need to find a defensive home for him. It's going to hurt his wins above replacement quite a bit. But this dude can absolutely mash, and he also is fast for a catcher. Like he has like 2020 potential as a catcher. Like. Next coming of Jason Kendall or something like that. So I really like him. Unfortunately, his odds have lowered to the point where he is no longer of super value, but especially when you consider all of those, all the problem areas like defense and whatnot, like I'm not going to buy into him at plus 330. I don't have a strong bet on the NL Rookie of the Year market. Bubba Chandler, the fourth favorite, is interesting. Like that's a Pirates prospect. The Pirates fans are dreaming of a rotation fronted by Skeens and Chandler has been fantastic. Like, why isn't he up? It drives me insane that he isn't up. He's going to be up.
Why.
Yes, he's going to be up eventually, and he's hopefully going to shove. The one long shot I am throwing a little bet on is Jordan Lawler of the Diamondbacks. They need to find a spot for him. He's been absolutely destroying AAA. If you're looking for a guy who has not debuted yet this year, he did get a tiny cup of coffee last year, so it wouldn't be his major league debut. But if you're looking for a guy who hasn't debuted yet in 2025, who could come up and just absolutely tear the cover off the ball and win this thing, it's Jordan Lawler. I was a little surprised he didn't come up when Ketel Marte went down.
Yeah.
But he's been crushing the ball in AAA. And he'll be playing for a team fighting for a playoff spot, which will give him a little bit more exposure. Not that Phoenix is the biggest market in the world, but he's still, if he's playing meaningful September games against the Dodgers and he's hitting the crap out of the ball, that's going to be worth a shot. He's at 50-1 right now at Rivers. He's in the 30 to 50-1 range at most sports books. It's not as strong of conviction as I do in some of those AL guys, but he's the one National League guy I'm worth sprinkling on.
Collin, can you, if you're looking at the odds there, if you have American League, what is Nick Kurtz at? He's the only guy who I'm wondering if, recent debut, going to be hitting the ball hard in a hot stadium. What's his number at?
He's right behind those top three.
Wilson,
Campbell, Dominguez, and then Kurtz. I'd have to look around he's 13-1 at DraftKings. He's 13-1
if you can
at
find a stray 25 out there, I think that would be the one that might intrigue me.
I like Kurtz a lot. 12-1 at MGM. We're gonna do this live. This is just riveting.
The live podcast. Line shop.
12-1 at Caesars.
Yeah, okay.
So they're all pretty aligned. 12-1 at Rivers. So yeah, 13-1 is the best you're getting on Kurtz.
Alas.
I worry. I haven't looked at what Kurtz's stats are like since he got called up. He is at
the market.
He's not really hitting yet. I feel snake bitten by first base prospects, like hit first base prospects who it's like those dudes just mashed in college. They mashed in the minors. You look at, the first two that come to mind for me are Andrew Vaughn and Spencer Torkelson. Now Torkelson is finally starting to turn it around this year. Andrew Vaughn very much is not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is Kurtz going to be that dude also? And again, he has a teammate who is a rookie who is significantly better than him in Jacob Wilson. So, if he were sitting in like the 25-30-1 range, I think he'd be worth a stab. But yeah, sitting as the fourth favorite essentially after playing 8 games, and he's 7 for 27 with no walks and 14 strikeouts. So
the only reason it's somewhat popped for me is that I know that from our side of things, he keeps popping as we should be betting unders because, and what that tells me is that the market really likes him. The market is intrigued by what they see from him. So when the market says something, I'm not, full Michael Fiddle on the NBA over here, but I will say it catches my eye of, oh, is this a guy who maybe I should be intrigued by? But it seems like maybe the market came over and bet it for Rookie of the Year as well, because that number's a little shorter than I would want for sure.
Yeah, as someone who was a number 4 overall pick, it's hard for him to like fly under the radar 100%. Necessarily. Let's move on to some team props here. Win totals, World Series, pennant, division. Only some sports books offer win totals in season. I don't know if you have anything there, but you want to talk specifically about the AL West and the Mariners. I'm curious what you're looking at in the futures market there.
Yeah, there's 2 teams I really came into today really wanting to talk about. Well, let's lead with the one in the AL West. And I'll say the AL West in general has caught my eye. The Rangers pitching has gotten maybe a little bit lucky, but they did that during the tough part of their schedule. It's funny. I was looking at some teams, like the Red Sox in particular. They have all these like blown saves. It seems like it's just unlucky, but they've also done it during an easy part of their schedule. I really hate when you kind of blow the leads in the easy part of the schedule and then you have the tough part and it kind of like can't quite cancel out. But the Rangers, on the other hand, they've gotten a little lucky, but they did it at the right time. And now they get, if that can level out as they get to the tough part of their schedule, they might be able to float through. The Astros, their pitching, their run prevention is just legit. Again, their pitching and defense is really good. They got through a tough part of their schedule. I think my favorite bet of this entire show right now is you can bet at FanDuel the AL West to win the American League pennant at plus 220. The Tigers are interesting, and they're a team I'm going to actually shout out, not minding. The Yankees, I always fade, and it always burns me, and they're the Yankees, and it's the Celtics of baseball, where I keep fading them, and they keep winning, and I get annoyed. But I do think there are question marks to be had about this team. And with the AL West, I think they could pretty easily get 3 teams, because the team I really want to talk about here is the Mariners. They learned to hit. The Mariners can hit now. They have the second best weighted runs created plus. They are 3rd in xWOBA, and they're doing this with Julio doing his classic early season slump. He's sub 100 weighted runs created plus. For his career, it's a 92 weighted runs created plus in March and April, and then it shoots up after that. It's 114 in the first half, 155 second half. So this offense being finally a thing with the pitching staff that they have. And now listen, again, we did just see Logan Gilbert go to the IL, but we have George Kirby who's coming back soon. And it looks like, fingers crossed, knock on all the wood, Gilbert's injury isn't, a season ender. They're doing this with a deflated BABIP. They finally got pop. They finally got a walk rate. They're doing this against the 7th hardest strength of schedule so far, and they have the 5th easiest for the rest of the way. So this is a team that I'm kind of all aboard. I've got the escalator for them. I've got the escalator for one other team. So I'll walk through what the escalator for the team side is. I've got the over 87.5 wins at FanDuel. I've got a first round bye at plus 290 at FanDuel, and I've got them to win the American League plus 1,000 at Caesars. I'm all in on Seattle. When has that ever not worked, right? The famously winning Mariners. How could it possibly go wrong? But it really looks like they've got some pop in those bats finally, and with the pitching staff that they always have. They have depth of pitching. We even talked about Brian Wu. I mean, they have so many arms there. Hancock is intriguing. If they have even a top 10 offense, this is a legitimate contender in the AL. So I think we're catching them, a little bit before they're cresting. And so I'm taking the escalator, first level, second level, all the way up to the top floor there.
I love it. The Mariners are a team that their fan base was, apoplectic over the offseason because their ownership failed to add any offense spending wise. Randy Rosarina has been really good for them this year. Jorge Polanco, we mentioned earlier.
Our guy.
He's basically, right next to Aaron Judge as far as best hitters in the American League. The one team, there are 2 teams you mentioned in the AL West that I have other significant comments on. The Rangers are really interesting because the Rangers have underwhelmed significantly this year in terms of record so far relative to my expectations for them. Sitting at just 16-16, despite getting what they've gotten out of Nate Eovaldi and Tyler Mahle, is like insane to me. And the fact that we didn't even get to May before they had to call up the likes of Patrick Corbin is really concerning to me. And this is a team that didn't come into the year with a very strong bullpen. And Luke, we've already seen what Luke Jackson has done in that role. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'll have to look this up, but is David Robertson still unemployed? He was great for them last year.
That's a great question. I'm actually not sure off the top of my mind. I don't think I have seen him on a team this year.
He didn't officially retire. He was good for the Rangers last year. He's still a free agent. Like, why haven't they brought him back? Amazing. Why hasn't any team brought him back? Yeah. So yeah, the Rangers have disappointed me quite a bit. They just sent Jake Berger down.
Yeah,
Jake
that
Berger
really caught my eye.
Yeah. We talked about Langford and his possible MVP contending season. Seager's been Seager for them. Marcus Semien starts slow, so we could see him bounce back. And Jock Peterson's been one of the worst hitters in baseball. Yeah. So there's the fact that, again, Nate Eovaldi's sitting here with a 2.11 ERA. Tyler Mahle sitting with a 1.19 ERA. DeGrom has been fantastic for them, and they're 16-16. Yeah. Like that, they are what people expected the Mariners to be this year, actually, which was great pitching, but can't support them. And that's what makes the Mariners so intriguing. Is again that top three when healthy. Gilbert comes back, Kirby comes back, Luis Castillo that's arguably the best rotation in baseball, right? Obviously, I love Gilbert. I mentioned having a Cy Young future on him. I'm curious if that offense is going to keep doing what it's doing. Like, Jorge Polanco's not going to keep doing this.
Wait, Jorge Polanco's not going to be Aaron Judge level all season? I can't believe it.
I love Randy Arozarena. He's very, very streaky hitter. But like you mentioned, Julio Rodriguez, if those guys come down, Julio Rodriguez comes up, that's helpful. Cal Raleigh is one of the best offensive catchers in baseball, and also one of the best framers in baseball. Yeah. Like, you mentioned him at like the WAR leaderboard for like MVP, and it's like, yeah, Cal Raleigh's going to be up there every year, which is insane. I don't know if they are going to have enough offense overall, but it's a very winnable division, so I get it. And once you get to that division, once you get in, you're in good shape. The Astros have
three in the postseason is going to be really nice.
Yeah, the Astros have confounded me quite a bit. I was very out on the Astros before the season. They have the third best bullpen ERA in baseball. The main reason I was out on the Astros is because I thought their bullpen was going to be dog shit. Behind Josh Hader, I didn't know, and Brian Abreu, I didn't know what was going to happen. Now, Brian Abreu has actually not been good this year, but everyone else has been good. So that would be the one team that could potentially contend with Seattle, I think. I'm out on Texas. I was in on Texas and out on Houston before the season. A month in, maybe it's an overreaction. I flipped the script. But long story short, I like your Mariners bet because, again, it's a weak division. Everyone talks about the AL Central as a weak division. The AL Central is a pretty weak division, but the Tigers, you're going to talk about them a little bit. The Guardians keep winning despite themselves somehow. They're 18-13 with a minus 24 run differential. And maybe we'll see the Twins turn around. The Twins are 13-19 with a plus 4 run differential. We'll talk about the AL Central in a minute. I want to talk about the only real team-based future that I'm eyeballing, and we've probably arrived a little bit too late at this, just like mentioned, arriving too late on Agustin Ramirez for NL Rookie of the Year. But the Atlanta Braves for the NL East, obviously the NL East, top three is stronger than probably any division in baseball with the Mets, Phillies, and Braves. The Braves got off to an absolutely terrible start. They've now won 9 of 12. They have the third best odds to win the NL East behind the Mets and the Braves. It's in the like plus 350 range. I think that might be worth a sprinkle. I would have liked to get it probably a week or two ago when it was even longer. But we're starting to see the Braves heat up. Their bats are starting to get going. They haven't even gotten Ronald Acuna Jr. back yet. And we're hoping that Spencer Strider's latest IL stint is not a lengthy one. Have the two Spencers at the front of that rotation. The Mets look like world beaters right now. The Phillies are old, And, I know Zerillo was kind of down on them entering the year. I remain kind of down on them. Their bullpen is a huge question mark. They're getting by with Jose Alvarado closing games right now. He's been fantastic. I don't know if I trust him over the long haul. So I like the Braves as a potential buy low spot on them to win the NL East. And I'd look at their other numbers, their pennant, their World Series, because I think they're going to be in it in the end. They were like 10 games under 500 at one point. They're 2 games under 500 now. Their run differential as of their most recent game got back in the positive, or 2 games ago, I think. They're +1, their run differential. So they've actually underperformed their run differential now. So I like the Braves there. Jim, any thoughts there? And then we can go into your other bets.
For sure. Yeah. The biggest thing with the Braves is it kind of is similar to the Red Sox I was mentioning, where they kind of had their struggles against the soft part of the schedule. So they had the 10th easiest schedule so far, and they have the 4th toughest remaining. So they really do have a lot of the Giants still remaining there. So overall, I think betting on a team with the talent of the Braves is never really a bad idea. And I think these buy low opportunities are exactly what we're looking for. But I think because we're a little bit late and they've, like you said, won 9 of 12, the numbers shrunk a little bit. I think for me, it's a touch late to arrive to the party to actually bet it yet. But I do think it's a team that, if they don't win the division, so they have to go into the postseason, not through a bye, they're playing the first round. Really, that's the time I'll probably want to be buying in on them again. Is when the number honestly might not even move all that much when we look at like the ceiling, because I do think this Braves team, you kind of want the ceiling. That's what they have, the ceiling of a top talent team in the NL. But I think I would wait out a little bit, get even more information, see how those Spencer's arms are holding up, see Michael Harris and those guys. Michael Harris is a very up and down player, if we're catching him up or if we're catching him down come postseason. But definitely an incredibly talented team for sure.
Talk to me about the Cubs. What do you like about them right now?
Cubs are kind of my NL Mariners. I want the escalator again. I'm all in on them. They've had a really insane schedule to start the season. This is one where it helps to, I was listening. I can't remember. It's probably Payoff Pitch. Some podcasts I was listening to before the season was like a month into the season, take a look at Cubs futures. And it played out exactly to that point. But the crazy thing is they even did well against that stretch. So they had a stretch where they basically played over 500 teams to start the season. They played 7 against the Dodgers. They don't play the Dodgers the rest of the season. They played 6 against the Diamondbacks. They played 6 against the Padres. They played the Rangers, who, theoretically were a team that people were looking at to be a good team. Phillies, the Athletics, who really haven't been all that bad. And then finally they got Pittsburgh, and who they get? They get Paul Skeens right off the bat.
And they beat him.
And they beat him. Yeah, this is a Cubs team that through all of that is still looking elite. And on top of that, they have the 7th worst bullpen ERA right now. They've actually had a little bit of bad luck in blowing games, and they're perfectly positioned to go and pick up a couple of bullpen arms for the stretch run and cinch up what is really a very talented roster. The Justin Steele injury is a little bit worrying, but they've been able to hit just at a level that is very eye-opening. I think they really have an excellent lineup there, one of the best in baseball. So similar to the Mariners, I like over 91.5 wins, -110 Caesars. I like the division for most places is around like -240 range. DraftKings is a little bit behind. It's -185. Laying -185 for a full season, some people don't love doing. I think that's a really good bet because the Cardinals and Brewers, they're doing their devil magic again. Their pitching is somehow succeeding despite, all the numbers saying this will not continue. This will not continue. But, that I think that I think the Cubs are clearly the best team. I think the Reds, honestly, Sean's been on this all season. I think the Reds are probably the most interesting team there. They've started to wake up a little bit. That run differential is a little bit inflated, so don't go by strictly the run differential for the Reds. But I think this Cubs team's outstanding. So I'm also going to be looking at them to get the buy at +300. I really love that market that has appeared now. I think that's a really fun way to, in a world where the Dodgers exist, you can kind of bet them basically to be second to the Dodgers there. And maybe that's fading a little bit of Mets as well, who right now would be the team that would be in that buy spot. And then even over like a World Series ticket at +2,000, I kind of want to do this best record at +2,200. The Dodgers, we know the Dodgers are in this for one thing. They're all about the titles. Now, they could care less if they win 99 games. They will save pitchers. They will save batters. They are in this for title things. I think the Cubs, for the best record for +2,200 right now, for considering the schedule they have played and the results they have gotten, now they have a much easier schedule down the stretch. I think the best record's the way I want to do it. And then once we get to the postseason, we can look at how things match up and see how health is going. But for the top floor of the escalator over here, I want the Cubs' best record in baseball plus 2,200 at FanDuel.
That's a really fun bet. I was really in on the Cubs 10 to the season. I was very aligned with. Yeah, I think you're right that it was payoff pitch. That it was Zerillo talking to Mike Calabrese about that Cubs bet, basically betting the Reds preseason, betting the Cubs when the first month ended. Obviously, that hasn't worked out because the Cubs have been fantastic. I don't have a strong bet here. I'll just kind of play devil's advocate because I'm with you mostly on the Cubs. Their offense has been incredible. We talked a lot about MVP candidates, and we didn't mention the most obvious MVP candidate, which is Carson Kelly. Obviously,
well, he's fourth. He's the one behind Judge. And before yesterday, it was going to be a 2-person quiz. It was going to be who are the 2 batters right below Judge, and it was Jorge Polanco and Carson Kelly.
15 walks and 6 strikeouts with a 1350 OPS for
Joe DiMaggio numbers there.
Carson Kelly. Pete Crow Armstrong has been insane. I was kind of out on PCA entering the season. I thought he would just be one of those defense only decent WAR guys, like failed former Mets outfield prospects going the way of Jared Kelenic. I've been way wrong about that. I really like him. He's going to be high up on these WAR leaderboards because of his defense, and he's been hitting the crap out of the ball. I do wonder what they're going to do at third base. They gave up on Matt Shaw really, really quick, sent him back to the minors. He was an NL Rookie of the Year candidate. But the one thing that I worry about, and again, I'm glad you compared this to the Mariners because I do think it's a really similar situation to the Mariners. But the flip side, right? With the Mariners, my concern was that the offense would regress because I wasn't worried about their pitching. But I like the bet because it's such a winnable division. With the Cubs, their offense is fine. Their offense is amazing. It's top two or three offenses in the National League at lowest. I worry about how that pitching staff is going to hold up, particularly as we get into the warmer months at Wrigley Field with fly ball pitchers behind Shota Imanaga, Jameson Taillon, Matthew Boyd, and then with Justin Steele down with Ben Brown, who we mentioned earlier on the podcast, and Colin Ray. And then the bullpen, you mentioned, maybe they've gotten a little bit bad luck with the saves, but the bullpen was their bugaboo last year, and they didn't really do that much to fix it. They got Ryan Presley from the Astros. Ryan Presley's washed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that dude's not a closer anymore. Right now on May 2nd, he has more walks than strikeouts on the season. He has a 2.08 ERA. Like, he's been lucky so far. They're relying on former Kansas City Royals ace Brad Keller in the bullpen. So maybe we're going to see a lot of 14 to 13 games at Wrigley this summer. That would be great. Wrigley's 2 miles down the road from my house. I'm going to be there a lot this summer. It'll be fun. I'll be out in the bleachers, with a beer in my hand, cheering on all these home runs, placing bets on Kyle Tucker to go deep twice or something. But that would be my devil's advocate argument on the Cubs, is just I worry about how that pitching is going to hold up as we get into the summer. But again, in the NL Central, they're clearly the class. Like, I'm like, I'm worried about the Cubs pitching, and is the Reds pitching any good? No. Could we see the Cardinals sell, which they've never done? And you mentioned they could be in position to buy, but is ownership going to spend? Are they going to bring in someone who makes a significant amount of money in order to put them over the top? So again, I'm picking nits here a little bit. I like your bet overall. That would just be my kind of contrarian look at why this would be an issue for the Cubs going forward.
No, 100%. I think that especially the will they go and get stuff is totally fair, because the bullpen being an issue is like easily addressable until it's just not addressed like it wasn't last year. So it's a totally fair counter to the Cubbies there.
We'll talk one more division here before we let folks go. We talked about the Tigers a little bit. They have been the best team in the American League. They were the first AL team to 20 wins with their comeback win against the Angels last night. The AL Central's, I mentioned it hasn't been that bad this year. I was down on the Tigers to start the year. I really, as a White Sox fan, not that they're going to contend with any of these teams. Like, I deal with Tigers fans all the time. I am sorry if you're a Detroit fan listening to this. I despise your team. They're good. They're good despite Riley Green leading the world in strikeouts right now and not being good. How much more are you going to get out of freaking like Trey Sweeney and Dylan Dingler? Like, Jesus Christ. Talk to me about why you like this team.
Yeah, this will be briefer. This is, of the three teams, this is the one. I just wanted to shout out that, Zurilla, I think, has been on these guys. So I wanted to shout that I'm joining. I was more skeptical to start the season, but again, they have the easiest remaining schedule. Riley Green was actually the guy who I had marked here. A lot of room to improve. He was a guy who I bet at a long shot MVP before the season. It's a guy who has a ton of talent. Isn't fully clicking right now, but I have a lot of faith in the long run. Skubal is just amazingly legit. Talked about how he's actually improved his stuff plus the pitching plus this season. And they have great pitching depth. I always really love teams with good pitching depth. Casey Mize seems like he's finally putting things together. We're seeing Jackson Jobe for an extended stretch for the first time. They've had a little bit of bullpen luck, but I do think that they have a decent group out there in general. So I like their win total over 89 at -110 at Caesars. And then just a sprinkle, I want to get in a little bit on that AL pennant. It's basically my portfolio is coming out that my big gaping hole at the middle is going to be the Yankees because I was low on them to start the season. I'm low on them now. So, it may well burn me, but plus 800 at Caesars, I think, is worth just a little bit. In addition to the Mariners, who I'm a little bit heavier on as my team that I really love in the AL.
You are going to be sitting pretty when the ALCS is the Detroit Tigers against the Seattle Mariners. Hell might freeze over at the time. But the one, the AL Central is the division I follow the closest. The Royals are sitting at plus money right now to make the playoffs. I was high on the Royals to start the season. We talked about Reagans as a AL Cy Young candidate. They obviously have arguably the second best hitter in the American League, Bobby Witt Jr. Vinny Pasquantino's gotten off to a slow start, and they're still sitting above 500. But unlike a team like the Tigers, I think that their depth is lacking quite a bit. We saw them call up one of their top arms for a spot start the other day, whose name I'm blanking on, Noah Cameron, I believe. So don't know what they're going to look like as we get later into the season. I think that them trading Brady Singer for Jonathan India was questionable at the time, and it might be even more questionable if their pitching falters, while their offense hasn't been is at least a little bit intriguing. But I think they're the second best team in the AL Central. They're better than the Guardians. They don't have a better record than the Guardians right now. They're better than the Guardians. The Twins just seem like they might be having the season from hell.
It's amazing.
The one thing I was upset about in the AL Rookie of the Year market, the one guy I was ready to jump into was Luke Keyshaw, who was hitting third for the Twins, playing a little bit of the infield and DHing, and now he's out for 2 months. So sometimes a team just has it's just like everything's going wrong. And that seems to be what the Twins are going through right now. They actually have a positive run differential at 13-19. They're underperforming, but I'm out on them. And if the Royals finish in second to the Tigers in the AL Central, they'll absolutely be in contention to snag one of those wild card spots. We mentioned the weaknesses of the AL West. The AL East, who the hell knows how that's going to shake out behind New York, potentially. So yeah, the Royals to make the playoffs at plus money. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, the Royals were a team I was actually low on to start the season, but I actually have been impressed with them. And Chris Bubich, I talked about how Max Meyer is in my newsletter inbox every day. Chris Bubich is the other guy who has made a lot of improvements, kind of like a big pedigree guy who struggled for a couple of years. He's really kind of like Max Meyer of the American League. And there's really a lot to be impressed with there. So that's another arm for them. I'm probably more neutral on them than you. The Guardians, I want to keep fading them, but they do seem to have some sort of devil magic there that is infuriating. And somehow they're going to win 87 games, win the division, and it's going to blow up all of my portfolio because I'm low on them as well as being low on the Yankees. and they just seem to have that. I do think that there's a lot to be said. I think the Yankees front office, for being thought of as kind of a Death Star money spender for a long time, they really do have some of the best analytics programs in front offices, and I think Cleveland is up there as well. And some of those teams where we're like, they've got devil magic, it's like, well, no, they have really good analytical front offices that are able to find edges that we aren't able to spot on this side. So it is scary fading those teams, the Brewers of the world, even the Cardinals, who don't. It's a different type of analytics, it seems like, but they've got something there. So those are the teams that sometimes I'm in on, like the Rays I almost always get in on, and sometimes for whatever reason the Guardians and the Yankees, I can't talk myself into it quite, and they do well. But I'm with you in thinking that there is some fall off coming for the Guardians, even if I'm a little bit scared to bet it directly.
All right, I think we've covered the whole spectrum here, giving people a lot of futures. Excited to see how these go, and as we get into later in the season, building out our portfolio. Quick recap here: AL MVP. Neither of us are really excited to bet against Aaron Judge. Wyatt Langford 75-1 at Bet Rivers. Rafael Devers, not really an official bet, but he's 150-1. NL MVP, you're on Pete Alonso at 13-1. I'm on Mookie Betts 55-1. AL Cy Young, we're both on Cole Reagans at 20-1 at Caesars. NL Cy Young, you're on the favorite, Paul Skeens. He's plus 210 at ESPN Bet. And I like my long shot bet on Max Meyer, 100-1 at Bet Rivers. Rookie of the Year, you don't have anything, and I am on Cam Smith, 30-1, Will Warren, 100-1, Edgar Carroll, 120-1 at FanDuel in the AL, Jordan Lawler in the NL, 50-1 at Rivers. And in the team market, you like a whole bunch of Mariners bets, a whole bunch of Cubs bets, a little bit of Tigers, and I like the Braves for the NL East. A lot of action, a lot of bets. We'll see how it all plays out, and we'll probably talk again in about a month, see what we want to add to our futures portfolio. But thanks a lot for joining me, Jim. This has been Payoff Pitch. We will be back next week with more bets, with more Sean Zerillo on the Daily Slate. Until then, good luck on your bets, and we'll talk to you next time.